Hello. Ah, always a little bit of a rush to get here. Sorry, I'm a few minutes behind, people. I was making egg white bread. So this is let's see. Oh, it's very, uh, here, I'll hold it back here so you can get a better view. There's too much light on it up front. So this is the Maria Emmerich original. Well, this is the Indigo Neely version based upon the Maria Emmerich protein sparing modified fast bread, which I just like to call protein bread because that's too many words. And I'm not doing a protein sparing modified fast, and it's just a bread of protein. So one of the things that, so I made this one just with dried egg white powder. This is keto chows. I have to use a clip because I cannot close any of these. It's not just keto chow, but any of these containers. I'm incapable of, I just threw bread on the floor. I am incapable of closing any of these containers properly. And then my boyfriend is like, and this one's open, and this one's open. And I'm like, I can't do it. So we have these anyway. If you fight about the fact that you can't close a container, your relationship is pretty good. Um, hey, Mike, that's funny. So anyway, one thing that kind of went funny today was so I saw that Indigo Neely had this recipe, or Neely is her first name, had this recipe. She's been like doing all sorts of permutations of this protein bread. And I have to say, wasn't super thrilled with, hey guys, I wasn't super thrilled with the texture I was getting when I made it the original way. So she's like, well, this way's better, that way's better. I was like, well, okay, I'll try it. So the people at Keto Chow were very sweet and sent me a bag of this dried egg white protein powder. And I was like, well, let's do it then. So I've made it before with whole eggs. Well, I mean, egg whites from whole eggs and also from boxed whites. And it was useful, but not tasty in my opinion. And no shame, no, it's all eggs, right? It's not, I wasn't quite happy with it, is the way I'll put it. And so I'm picky. And so I saw that, and then I just use up so many eggs. And I saw that Indigo had done it with just powder and water. And I was like, well, that's interesting because I have an entire bag of this powder. And then I saw she had some modifications. So I thought I would try one of her modified recipes. I think my oven is still on. There's nothing in it. I just heard that click noise. Anyway, so um so I did. I used some dried whole egg powder in the recipe as well. The funny thing I will tell you is I did not watch her video specifically on her trying out Keto Chow's egg whites. And so I followed her recipe and it didn't froth up. And I know what it's supposed to look like because I've made it with real eggs before. I mean, not that these aren't real, but whole, fresh eggs. It wasn't frothing up. And I was like, I must have some fat in this bowl. There must be some, dumped everything out, started over. Still wasn't working. I was like, what is going on? Dumped everything out, and 3 seconds later thought, maybe I shouldn't have dumped everything out again. What's going on? I texted a friend of mine who I know, my brain isn't working, Lisa, my friend Lisa. And I said, it's not coming together. And she's like, oh, I think on the video where Indigo Neely tried Keto Chow, it took longer. And I was like, oh. So I think I dumped both of those batches out for absolutely zero reason. So that was fun. And I watched her version with using the Keto Chow dried egg whites, and it took 12 minutes to whip instead of 5 for me. She said for her it was 10. So that was a lot longer. Also, she had the same problem I did, that I thought this isn't right, where my entire kitchen had been splattered with the liquid. It just splattered, and I was like, oh. So I put a towel over it, and I found out she also put a towel over it. So anyway, so I finally made it work. So tip to the wise: if you're using Keto Chow's version and you're following Indigo Neely's recipe for it, it took longer, a lot longer to come together. She says she thinks it's because of the sunflower lecithin added. So that might be. So anyway, one of the things I was really impressed with this version that I can't get in all the versions. I'm not very good at cutting things, obviously, but look how thin I was able to get these slices. Super thin. Let's see the texture. So the difference with this one is instead of it just being egg whites, I also added the dried whole egg. So there's some egg yolk in this. So you can see it gives that nice stretch of bread. I'm going to cook it a little less next time. It's a little overdone on the edges for my taste, and I actually think that's going to make it a little less dry too. But so it's still a little dry for me, but it's not horrible. I'm the person that likes the inside of the bread, not the outside of the bread. But this, I mean, I'm getting this feels and very much like Wonder Bread. So I'm feeling good about this. So one of the tests you can do is she did this. I'm taking this from I know somebody named Alexis Neely, and so this is confusing. Indigo Neely. She said if you kind of crumple it up, does it do like bread? And yeah, it's not so super styrofoamy. Hold on, I'll eat a bite. I have breadcrumbs on my computer. Still a little memory foamy, but better. So I'm gonna keep working on this because she also used butter powder. Let me swallow. Okay. Okay. She I'm spitting bread out. However, I feel like if I put something on this bread, I wouldn't find it too dry. It's a lot less dry. But I'm gonna keep working on it just like Neely. Anyway, so but one thing I was really happy with is it does seem to work with just the protein powder. And so I'm gonna play with it a little bit, but it's a nice, the texture's good. You got some bubbles in there, and it's not as styrofoamy as it was when it was just egg white. So I'm having good thoughts. Indigo Neely also has a version where she puts a little bit of arrowroot powder in that. So I bought some. I haven't tried that yet. That will add some carbs, but it's like a couple tablespoons for the whole loaf. Arrowroot powder is actually super carby, but a little will go a long way. And then you divide that up into a bunch of slices, and it's not going to be much. So Terry reminds you to click the thumbs up, y'all. So please do like the video, save the video, send the video, share the video, all the video things. All right. So that was my bread experience. And so I feel positive. I feel positive about this. I like bread things. I like sandwiches. I like putting things on sandwich. I use the egg life wraps a lot because I just like picking things up. My lunch looks like a toddler every day. My lunch, well, my boyfriend's lunch, it's like the equivalent of like a sandwich and some, like those little toddler meals you make. I have little luncheon plates. That's what we use. So I make usually a wrap. He makes a little sandwich, but I have high hopes now with some of these add-ins for this bread, and that would be lovely. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Indigo Neely. It's her channel on YouTube. Indigo, like the color, right? Kind of close to this. Was I wearing this sweater last week? I can never remember. I should look before I get dressed. And then a bunch of little add-ins, and so it's not cheap. So watch her videos to know what you want to do, because don't waste your money on these things like I did today. So mostly the money I wasted was on the allulose because I don't have very much of that, and the Keto Chow people were nice enough to send me this bag to practice with. So I will keep you posted on any experiments I do with the bread. I had a good day in the gym today, so I'm feeling good about that. But gosh, that uses up a lot of my day. All right, let me see. I missed some questions, so let me see what we got. Leah says, if someone takes antibiotics, what can one take to restore the gut biome? So one of the things that Leah is talking about here, if you guys don't know, is that your gut is full of bugs, good bugs, bad bugs. And so when you take antibiotics, those antibiotics kill not just the bad bugs, but the good bugs, whatever's going on that you want to take care of. And it's sort of like systemic, right? When you take an antibiotic, it's you're digesting it, so it kind of hits your digestive system. Hold on, I gotta plug my technical difficulties here. Let's see if I can get my computer to charge. Computer. Okay, well, if we run out of power, that's what happened. I don't know why it's not doing the thing. So uh so it hits your gut because you're ingesting these um various antibiotics and your gut wants probiotics. So there are things you can do kind of to help. Eating yogurt can be beneficial. So maybe leafy greens can be beneficial. One of the unfortunate things is there are a bunch of sauerkraut, real pickles, not fake pickles. So the real pickles are the kind that have active cultures rather than just being pickled with vinegar. If they're shelf stable and you don't need to refrigerate them, they're not doing you any gut good. They're tasty though. So the thing is, I've read studies, I think it was Chris Kresser put out a little piece on it that probiotics can be good or bad, and it's hard to know until you know how your body responds to those probiotics in terms of whether they'll help post antibiotics. So I would generally say give it time, eat foods that feel nourishing, that have naturally occurring probiotics, and you should be okay after a while. Um, Ashley, apparently the Now brand of egg white powder works great, and you don't need to beat it as long. It seems to work with Indigo Neely's recipes. So good deal. So just if you're using Keto Chow or another brand where you're following the recipe and it's just liquidy, just keep beating it is the answer. Don't throw it away. It just needs more time. Um, Michelle Enders, people are taking the protein sparing modified fast bread that comes out too dry, drying it, grinding it into powder, and calling it power flour. They say it works great. Okay. All right. Please warn people about Valentine's Day coming up. I do so good and they'll self-sabotage. I bought strawberry truffles to give out at Valentine's Day and ate 3 after intermittent fasting and a healthy day. All right, let's talk about it, people. So Valentine's Day is coming up, I guess. I don't pay a lot of attention to Valentine's Day. I don't know why I'm not apparently a romantic, but yes, it is indeed coming up. And the first thing I would say is this is not just about Valentine's Day, but this is about anything, is never buy treats that you don't want to eat that you will be tempted to eat. I used to sometimes pick up like a hamburger and fries for my boyfriend on the way home from somewhere, and I would get the hamburger and fries and put them in my trunk. I couldn't have french fries in the car with me because you know that habit we all had when we ate french fries is we would just reach into the bag and on our drive home start eating some. And it was too tempting for me. And so I would get out of the when I got the thing, I wouldn't go to the drive-through, I'd go in the store and I'd put the bag in the trunk so I couldn't eat them. So you have to come up with ways of protecting yourself from yourself in all circumstances. So keep those barriers strong when you're going to be tempted. It doesn't mean you're a weak person, it means you're a smart person to do those kinds of things. Don't rely on willpower, rely on strategy. Um, and so that is important. Uh, and don't think about it as self sabotage because that seems very complicated and it feels like I don't want to succeed and I have a deep psychological issue. It's like they're tasty and you want to eat them. That is evolutionarily appropriate to eat sweet, tasty things in your vicinity because evolutionarily we wouldn't have so much access to them. And so your ancient brain does not know that they are plentiful and is giving you the appropriate signals to eat them. If you don't want to eat them, make a strategy that will make eating them difficult. That is for any experience, I would say. Also, if you know you are someone who really struggles, don't even buy them. Other people don't need them. Give them flowers, give them a hug. I don't know. Don't be I get it. I'm a feeder. I like to buy people food. I like to feed people. I come from a family of feeders. I totally get it. If you can't handle being around certain foods, don't feed them to people. That would be this is not just for Melissa, this is everyone, advice for everyone. Amelia says, my daughter lost 7 pounds the first week on keto and nothing the second week. I'm sure she lost mainly water weight, but now she is already trying to find shortcuts. Any advice? So, yes, she did lose water weight the first week. That is entirely true. She did lose water weight the first week. You cannot lose 7 pounds unless you are 400 pounds. You can't lose 7 pounds of body fat in a week if you're still eating some food. It's just mathematically impossible. It is some water weight. Everyone the first week of a diet is going to lose some water weight. It's awesome. It feels good. You feel better. Life works better. So it's like, it's not nothing. It's important. But I would say it's not a bad idea if she's gone a week without losing any weight to evaluate, not to try and find shortcuts, but to evaluate if her approach is appropriate for her body and circumstances. So rather than getting tricky with like hacks, I would say get curious and see, am I following an appropriate approach? Amelia, I assume your daughter is an adult, so I'm going to go with that. Barbara says, I'm so glad to see the improvements. Indigo is very creative indeed. Yeah, this one is not a choking hazard. It is still drier than I want, but it's definitely getting there. I'm gonna experiment some more. Loving it on keto with Wendy has a recipe like Indigo's, but she has buttermilk powder. Yes, I might add the butter powder and the whole egg powder. I don't know. Krista says, thank you for the tip about watching YouTube videos to help with machines at the gym. I watch one for proper technique and hand position. Are you doing a special program at the gym? I have a program. I've kind of created the program. So I have some good friends. Robert Sykes is Keto Savage, and he gave me a workout to follow. And then of course I modified it because that's who I am. I can't follow instructions at all. And then Rachel Gregory, Metflex Life. I also have worked a little bit with her on some questions. So I'm educatedly developing my own program. But a lot of what I've been doing the past 6 weeks is like wandering around the gym and being like, what does this machine do and how does it work? Like I've just gotten very curious about the about all the machines. And today I walked up to a very nice man and said he was sitting on a machine and he didn't look like he was deep in thought, but he was also not doing anything. And I said, "How does that machine work?" Because I actually tried to get on it the other day and couldn't make anything happen. And it's like a hip thrust machine. So he showed me. He was like, "You do this, and then you do this, and you do." I was like, "Okay, I get it." So then I got on it after he got off it without any weight on it, and I just tried to practice the movements again. So I've been spending a couple of hours a week doing research. You guys, this is how nerdy I am. And I'm not that smart. I'm just dogged. So I've been spending a couple hours a week on YouTube videos and research about different approaches, different machines, progressive overload, all this stuff. So I just kind of did a deep dive. Yeah, that's just how I do. That's how I do. Um, and I don't know how. Okay, I have now I had a thought. So somebody said if their egg loaf doesn't come out, they dry it out and crumble it up. So essentially, you're taking a loaf made of dried egg whites, adding water to it, drying it out again, and crumbling it up. I don't know if that's going to work any differently than just using the egg, right? You're just dehydrating and rehydrating and dehydrating. Anyway, just a thought there. But better than throwing it away, maybe. A bread question says, Anne, can you use a hand mixer? I think so, but your arms will be tired. So I find that my stand mixer works about twice as fast as my hand mixer. And I had to mix this bread for 12 minutes at full speed, my stand mixer. So you might be beating your egg whites for like 20 minutes. Maybe not. It might not take that long, but it could be. So it's more of an effort issue. You definitely need an electric mixer of some kind, though. Idiot. What did I miss? If I missed your question, I apologize. Just put it in again. Sometimes I miss things. Barbara asked, what is your favorite protein powder? Well, Barbara, my house is now overrun with protein powders, I will tell you. I am not super pro protein powder drink, mostly because I am someone who always wants more food, not less food. I'm not blessed with the best genetics for my metabolic rate. I do what I can to push the envelope to get as much out of the old car as I can. But, when I see people who have very, very fast metabolisms, I'm very jealous. Um, so, generally speaking, I find for me, and then studies have also found, so it's true. I mean, you might be people might be the exception to the rule. So I'm not telling people how to do things. I'm just telling people what I find. Is drinking calories tends to not be as satiating as eating calories. So I tend to use protein powders in baking more than anything else. And I tend not to love egg white protein powder, especially in terms of the taste and the texture that tends to come out. So I often will suit my protein powder to what effect I'm trying to get as I'm baking. So like I have vanilla casein. So if you're talking about dairy proteins, there are two types of dairy proteins. There's casein and whey. So if you have a glass of milk and you just dehydrate it down to just the proteins, you would end up with casein. You'd add 80% casein and 20% whey. That's what's in milk as the protein ratios. And um, they're very different in how they act in food. So keto chow is something called milk protein isolate. So all protein powders could be concentrates or isolates. A concentrate, just think of it like it's less refined. An isolate is more isolated. So you almost always want an isolate. It will cause less digestive issues. It's cleaner, got less extra ingredients, generally lower carb as well. So keto chow is a milk protein isolate, which means it's 80% casein and 20% whey. They also in keto chow add some other ingredients, so it's not just that alone. Keto chow, so this is part of why keto chow ends up sort of richer and thicker and creamier. Whey protein ends up, if you just blended water and whey, it's super thin. It doesn't thicken up much. If you added water and casein, it gets thick. Whey protein is digested very rapidly. Casein protein is digested very slowly. So they have different functions. And these texture issues and qualities are going to make them different in different baking. But generally speaking, like my protein pancakes I make all the time that I adore, I got the recipe originally from Rachel Gregory and then I changed it because that's what I do. Uses casein protein, and that is perfect. It does not work with whey protein. It works great with casein. You can also use keto chow because it's like 80% casein. So, it's mostly the same. So it's a really personal decision based on what you're doing with a protein powder. So if you want to tell me, Barbara, what you want to do with a protein powder, I can give you some better advice. I have too much information in my head and I just sound like a kook. Karen said, uh, if I had to talk to new keto people, I would tell them to quit cheating. Yep. I find every time I have to get back on the wagon, keto doesn't work as well for me. Do you know why that is? So I can give you some ideas. So the worst thing you can do with weight loss, well, the best thing you can do long term to be at a healthy weight is to never get heavy in the first place. And you're like, thanks a lot for that advice. That's not helpful. I am a heavy person. The second best thing you can do is not lose any ground once you lose weight. I'm not talking about the like 5 pound fluctuation. That's pretty manageable. But, if it is not good for us to regain much weight after we've lost it, it's going to be much harder. Generally speaking, when we lose weight, we lose both. It depends how we went about the weight loss. Um, but if you lost weight quickly with not a lot of protein, it's possible you lost 50-50 um, body fat and lean mass. So now you have less muscle mass than you used to. Now you add weight, and that's going to be like 75% or more fat. And so your body fat ratio is getting worse and worse and worse every time you lose, regain, lose, regain, lose, regain. And you're going to end up in a far worse scenario than if you just lost intelligently slowly. So it's part of why it makes it harder, lowers your metabolic rate, just all sorts of problems. Um, so that's one of the reasons. The second is just everything is harder when you do it over and over again. I mean, it's just an emotional, mental thing. Helene, are konjac noodles and rice the same thing as miracle noodles? Yes, they are. Miracle noodles are made out of konjac or cognac. It's not cognac, I think it's konjac, which is also called glucomannan. Some brands add other ingredients like oat fiber or soy or other things like that, but miracle noodles are just konjac. Um, unless they have sometimes they have some flavored ones, whatever. It would not help boost your protein. No, they're not high in protein in any way at all. Unless you added like a meat sauce to them, and then that would boost your protein. They're mostly filler. They're like you can put sauce on them, you can use them in a stir fry. They're just filler. They're not they don't add any protein. Um Chelsea said, "Do you think you need to fast for weight loss with keto or ketovore?" No, I don't. I do not. I do think you need to perhaps eat less often. So I think snacking is going to be bad. So and then intermittent fasting, which is just not eating while you're sleeping and then a little longer, I think can be very helpful. But I don't think you need to fast. And I often think that fasting is a little bit overdone, and it's very successful for some people, and for other people, it's not great. And so I have never been somebody that had a good experience fasting, so I don't really do it. And I have lost 100 pounds. So Barbara says, "Good job at the gym. I need to do what you were doing with gym machine. Just explore and try." Yeah. I don't think I said this. I see some people saying they get in and out of the gym in like 30 minutes. I don't know how anyone does that. It takes me like 15, 20 minutes to do one exercise well. So I'm literally like, I am so confused how anyone is doing this much more rapidly than I am. I get that I am wasting a good half an hour wandering around figuring things out, but literally I get on a machine and it takes me, a couple minutes to do one set, and then I have to pause for a minute or two to get my bearings again, raise the weight, do it again, raise the weight, do it again. I don't know how it's done. Maybe they're doing fewer exercises more often. I can't figure out how people do these things quickly. Anyway, I'm having a good time, so it's fine. Anne says, "How about a Vitamix?" I don't think that would work, Anne, because you need to whip air into it. That's the pivotal thing. You're making a meringue, and you need to whip that air into it. So an electric hand mixer is much better than a Vitamix. It might work, but based on like the way the container is, I don't think you can whip enough air in with a Vitamix. But I could be wrong. I don't think it would work, but I'm a pessimist. Terry says, "When it comes to how many grams of fat you eat in a day, what is considered high fat and what is considered low fat?" That is a great question, Terry, and there is no good answer. It's all kind of dependent on all sorts of things, um, and who you ask. So if you ask like the mainstream media people, they would say anything above like I think 25% calories from fat is considered high fat. I wouldn't consider that high fat. I guess it doesn't matter is my answer would be my answer. So how I prioritize macros would be I figure out what sort of caloric intake works for me in terms of maintenance so then I can adjust up or down. I do that by tracking my calories so I know what my body is doing in response to my intake. First thing I do then is I work out how much protein I need. I mean, I know that now. It's been long enough. It's not changed, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. So for me at 5'9", that's around 145 grams. I'll eat anywhere from 120 to 160, depending on what's going on. It's totally fine. And then from there, I decide how I'm going to split up what I've got remaining in terms of my caloric intake between carbs and fat, depending on what's going on there. If I'm eating a few more carbs or a little more fat. And then if I'm trying to maintain, I'm trying to add muscle, or I'm trying to lose body fat in that period, I'm going to adjust up and down. So I don't care what somebody thinks about high, low, or medium fat. I just do what kind of works for my body. I know the terms can be helpful for communication, but ultimately, the problem is there's no one definition of what high or low fat is. So that's why I like higher fat or lower fat, meaning it's trending a certain direction. Karen says, what do I think about vitamin K2? I'm for it, especially with D3. Heather says, how do I shrink my thyroid nodules? Doctor wants me to get a biopsy. I honestly don't know. I would say you would definitely want to follow up with your doctor. Mike, casein protein is somewhat hard to find, not on Amazon. Whey is everywhere. Milk protein seems to be an industrial product. So yeah, so here's the deal. So the reason there's so much whey protein is because whey is a waste byproduct of cheese making. Because when they make cheese, they strain off the whey or most of the whey. And so it's a waste product. And so I don't mean that in a like bad sense. It's just they don't need it. So all these dairies are like, would you like some whey? And so whey manufacturers can buy whey protein super cheap from these dairies because they don't want to just have to throw it out. um, that's actually harder for them than having somebody come and pick it up and use it. So there is plentiful whey. And so that's part of the reason it's so popular. Um, Joy says, yeah, it does make good breadcrumbs. So great. Um, Barbara says, what about plant protein powders? Does your body gonna fill in the blank because it stops there? Use them the same. So plant proteins are not as bioavailable as whole animal based proteins in terms of their, gosh, it's like a DGAA score. I don't DSAA score. I don't remember what the initials are anymore, but it's basically how bioavailable those proteins are from the foods. Egg protein is very bioavailable. Whey is very bioavailable. Casein is pretty very bioavailable. And then it really drops when you go. Oh, and beef protein, a good quality beef protein, great. Collagen protein is not a complete protein, so I wouldn't use it as a protein source. You can use it for certain other things. I'm not saying don't use collagen protein if you want to use collagen protein, but it's not a whole protein. So it's not a full amino acid, so it doesn't have the full profile. And then we drop way down: pea, brown rice, hemp is better than some of the others, but all of those other plant-based proteins are nowhere near as bioavailable, meaning you need to use a lot more of them to get the same effect as from a um whatchamacallit, animal-based protein. Debbie says, I don't seem to be able to get the amount of protein I need. Do you have any what to eat in day videos? I have done some. I need to do more. Most of the time I've eaten something and thought I should have taken a picture of that. Um, I very easily can get 150 to 180 grams of protein in a day. May I introduce you to egg white protein bread? This whole thing, lots of protein. Egg life wrapped, lots of protein. So there's lots of things. Yogurt, Fage yogurt, so much protein. So I make desserts out of that all the time. I have a bunch of recipes. I have a little booklet that I have called Protein Prioritized. I really should put that out publicly. Let me see if I can do that. Noreen says, I really need a sweetener for my coffee. What is the best? Stevia and Swerve is a no-go, right? No, they're not a no-go. I put monk fruit drops in my coffee. I think they taste the best. Lakanto makes a monk fruit drop that I like very much. Carnivore Kathy says carnivore sounds way easier. Yes, indeed. But I apparently really enjoy being entertained by all sorts of things. Jean says stay under 20. Jean stays under 20 grams daily. Apparently, my new scale isn't working. Is it advisable to purchase a keto meter? I'm sure to make sure I'm in ketosis. I think if you are feeling good, you're under 20 grams of carbs a day, and you're seeing progress, I don't know that you need to test your ketones, honestly. And I love my ketone meter, but I'm a geek. Joanne says to make the protein bread, what size of stand mixer do you use? I have a medium stand mixer, but apparently any size, like the KitchenAid comes in like 3 sizes. Mine's the medium one. But I don't remember it's like 8 quarts, but the 6 quart, I think, also is fine. Joy says she uses the hand mixer and that works. Rosie said, so tough when you're dairy free. I would like to say that yes, it can be tough, Rosie. The question I would have is, why are you dairy free? One of the things that I will say is that in terms of if you want to use protein powders, if it's simply that you're lactose intolerant, the whey protein or casein protein isolates are in fact lactose free. So if it's a lactose issue, those have been removed. It's just proteins. If it's just dairy at all in general, I will say egg what protein? No dairy. Egg is not protein. I mean, wow. Egg is protein. Egg is not dairy. That's what I meant to say. And then runny nose and upset stomach, Rosie. Okay. So are you saying it's tough in general, or is it tough for protein powders? Because I want to make sure I answer your needs properly instead of telling you things you don't need to know. Jean says not seeing progress. Okay. Well, you can test your ketones if you want, but I actually say that you're probably better off. So if your carbs are truly under 20 total a day, it is 99% guaranteed that you're in ketosis. It just is. Some degree, it might be 0.2 or 0.3, but just keeping your insulin low is going to get you in that state that you need to be in. And so I wouldn't necessarily worry about your ketone number that much, but I would start tracking to look at why you're not seeing progress. Susan, hey Susan, do I use the original or the easy version? So today was the first time I tried it with the protein powder. When I hold something white up against my face, everything turns a different color. So this is the dried egg white version, not the fresh protein, not the fresh egg version. I got tired of using all those eggs. It's a lot of eggs. Then we're like out of eggs, and then we're getting more eggs and out of eggs. It's a lot of eggs. Gwen says, how much protein do we need a day to lose weight? So depends. You can lose weight eating 0 grams of protein. You will also be very unhealthy, lose a lot of muscle mass, and perhaps die. So I wouldn't recommend that, right? So there are lots of things you can do to lose weight, but I know that I was just being sarcastic when I know that wasn't really your question. I think what Gwen is asking is, how much protein is optimal for us to eat to be as healthy as possible as we're trying to lose body fat? Because you don't want to lose body weight, you want to lose body fat. And so it kind of depends who you ask, but I am more of a protein girl these days. And I really think, and there is some data to back up, that a higher protein approach does seem to be beneficial for long-term weight loss. So I aim for 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. And so the way you can calculate that pretty easily, you can use your goal weight if you want. So if your goal weight is 150, consider that your reference body weight. If you're not sure, you can always multiply 5 times your inches over 5 feet. So if you're 5'5", that's 25 plus 100, 125. 100 at 5 feet plus 5 every inch. Am I saying that if you're 5'5", you should weigh 125 pounds? I am not. I'm just saying that's a way you can calculate your protein. So that's grams. And somewhere in that range, 10% under, 10% over, totally fine. But that's how I would set protein, and I think that's very beneficial uh for losing body fat. That's what I do. Amelia says, "How many eggs do you eat in a day?" It really varies. Uh, it really varies. Sometimes I eat a lot of eggs, sometimes I don't eat any eggs at all day. So, I'm not a huge egg person, to be perfectly honest. I was just saying that I use up a lot of eggs when I try to make the egg white bread, a lot. Um, I love eggs. I often am just too impatient to actually stop and make eggs. So, but then I use eggs in a lot of things. Like if I make waffles, I use eggs in those. If I make pancakes, I use eggs in those. So I don't know. I'd probably average 2 eggs a day. I think eggs are probably one of the best foods we can eat. And so if you eat a lot of eggs, more power to you. Kimmy, I'm gonna guess that's how you pronounce that. Um, if you eat more than that, will you not lose weight? I'm assuming you mean protein. Like if you eat more grams of protein than that, like if I, instead of eating 145 grams of protein, ate like 180 grams of protein, you can still lose weight eating a lot more protein than that. Bodybuilders lose weight eating a lot more protein than that, but you have to balance it with everything else you're eating. So if I ate a lot more protein than that, and a lot more fat, and a lot more carbs, then I would not lose weight. So it's all about a balance. But some people just love high protein foods and they want to devote more of their budget to protein than fat or carbs. I mean, we're all pretty low carb, so none of us devote that much of our budget to carbs, but um uh than fat. And so you can, if you love chicken breast, you adore chicken breast. There is nothing that makes you happy but eating an enormous quantity of chicken breast. You could do that and still lose body fat. You just have to make it all work in a balanced way with everything you're eating. Okay, good. I'm glad I got it right. All right. So I know it's confusing. It feels confusing. But ultimately, like this all felt super overwhelming and confusing to me when I started keto. And the good news is that you got plenty of time, right? You start, you do something, you experiment, you see, am I better with more protein? Am I worse with more protein? Am I happier? Do I feel better? When I first started keto, I was told to eat around 65 grams of protein. I eat like 3 times that now, but I did that for a while. Then I did something else. Then I did some more. And so now I eat like 150 to 160, sometimes 180 grams of protein. And I'm much happier and I weigh 100 pounds less than I used to. So there's time to try something else. Kimmy said, Dr. Berry says eat until comfortably stuffed, so I never weigh my portions, but also seeing very little results. So I absolutely think eating till comfortably stuffed totally works when you're getting started, and for a lot of people it works right on through, and then others of us need to tweak a little bit, and I had to tweak a little bit because eating till I was comfortably stuffed lost me about 40 pounds maybe, and then it stopped, and I had like 120 pounds I wanted to lose, and so that wasn't going to work. So I had to learn a little bit about what worked for my body. So I track macros. Dr. B and I are good friends, but you got to do what works specifically for you. And if eating till you're comfortably stuffed works for you, super. I think that's the way to start, absolutely. But if at that point you find it's not working as well as you want, then I would get more educated about macros, macro tracking, and figuring out what works for your body. Um, Debbie asks, can we stay in ketosis indefinitely, like years even, until we get to goal weight? You can stay in ketosis forever if you want to. There seems to be, I don't see any evidence that it's a problem. I would say, for me, I'm no longer in ketosis most of the time recently because I eat a bit more carbs and a bit more protein and all that kind of stuff than I used to. But I'm happy, healthy. My insulin is very, very low. My blood sugar is very, very low. So you could just kind of decide if you love the feeling of being in ketosis, you love the experience of eating very high fat. If you love it, there's no real evidence that that's a problem in any way. It's not the only way to do it, but it can be done. If you love it, I want you to do what you love. Luba, I don't take probiotics. I eat a lot of yogurt, but that's not really for the probiotics. I just like yogurt. um, Karen says, have you seen the viral video of how to make noodles from eggs and a couple of chemicals, sodium alginate and calcium lactate? Um, I haven't, but I have a friend that does it with something with citric acid or something. I have not looked into those specific chemicals. Everything's a chemical, by the way. But I don't think those are necessarily of concern. Calcium lactate? Mm, I'd have to do some more research to give you an educated opinion, but I wouldn't be super concerned about it. Seems like a lot of work, though. Kathleen says, what is your opinion on how much your glucose shouldn't spike after you eat something? So it kind of depends on where you're starting from. Generally speaking, I don't like to see my blood glucose go up more than 30 points when I eat. So that's my opinion on that. And I think that's probably true of most people, keeping it within that 30, did I say 30 pounds? 30 points range. Um, is pretty decent. So that's kind of the range I have in mind. A lot of times, like if I ate just a big old steak and even a couple of vegetables with that, it wouldn't go up more than 15. But I give myself a little leeway. But no, I don't even know what year it is. 4 years ago, when I was testing my blood glucose with a lot of things, might go up 45 points with things that now barely raise it at all. These things can switch up over time a bit. The one thing I will say is if you are consistently keto, keeping your carbs, that sounded like a tongue twister, keeping your carbs under 20 or so grams, and suddenly you eat a very high carb food, your glucose is going to go through the roof because you have something called adaptive glucose sparing or physiological insulin resistance. It doesn't mean anything bad. It means that your insulin is taking a nap. So if your body is very smart and it doesn't want to, it's lazy as heck. And it's like, well, this woman never eats anything that makes our blood glucose go that high. So we are only going to release this much insulin. That's actually part of the healing process of being super insulin resistant. It turns the dial down on insulin production. But if you eat something that's very sugary, you need more insulin than you've been getting on keto. So it's essentially just a mismatch. So don't freak out if you eat something very sugary and your your blood glucose goes through the roof if your body's not used to eating sweet things. Just saying. Dusty says, what do you, but I think generally keeping your blood sugar within a 30-point range and then it's back to normal by 2 hours later is optimal for most people. What do you suggest to help with histamine intolerance? Dusty, histamine intolerance isn't really my thing. Like, I'm not suggesting I don't believe in it. I'm suggesting it's not something that I've done a lot of research on. I think it's very much about like, avoiding those high histamine foods is helpful for those people, but it's honestly not something I'm super versed in. So sorry. Gwen says, do you eat less fat than the keto high fat diet that is so popular now? I do indeed at this time and for the past 2 years eat a lower fat version of, I don't know if it's keto anymore, low carb. That has been what has worked for me. I am insulin sensitive. I could eat 100 grams of carbs in a day and my blood sugar would be totally happy. Like I used to be very insulin resistant. I fixed it. I'm insulin sensitive now. I eat now in a way that is lower fat, higher protein, and maybe a little higher carb than most people on keto. But I still work with people across the whole spectrum because keto is the bomb.com. It really is the thing that got me started. It's the thing that made me healthier, and now I have more flexibility. Tracy, do you think losing fat at a slower pace can create less loose skin? I don't think autophagy helped my arms. Yeah, so I think that mostly it's genetic. I have a lot well, I still have some fat in here, but I have floopy arms, like seriously floopy arm skin. Um, uh, and uh, and that's not going away no matter how much I wanted to do anything about. I'm not a big faster, but I have a friend who does multiple day fasts. She's a bit super faster. She had to get skin removal surgery. So some of us, just the older we are, then there's just genetics and how elastic our skin is, and it's just the way it is. By the way, did you know that exercise has more autophagy benefits than fasting? Anyway, interesting. Lucy said, "Why do you know why I would react to egg whites and scrambled eggs, but not a whole egg mixed in a meatloaf?" I'm gonna guess that it's just the concentration. Um, if you can't eat a whole egg white in scrambled eggs, then I would probably stay away from the egg white wraps. More people are allergic to egg whites than are allergic to the yolks, just a reality. But if you think about it, scrambled eggs are like 99% eggs, and one egg in a whole meatloaf is like zero point 0.1 gram of egg per slice of meatloaf. So I think it's a concentration issue, probably. Rosie asked, oh, power's getting low. All right. I think we'll be okay though. Rosie asked, what brand of yogurt do you eat? Is it low carb? I eat Fage, which is spelled Fage. I'll also eat Too Good sometimes. They are low carb, but they are not like no carb. Fage is, I think it's like 6 grams of carbs for a cup. And so, like I said, I have a higher carb tolerance than a lot of people, but you can certainly work that into most keto approaches. Helene says, my doctor is fine with keto, but he said if a person goes on and off, it's dangerous to the body and damages the heart arteries. Thoughts on that? It's kind of dumb. I'm going to say that. One of the things that's a reality is if you look at the standard American diet, which is, I've done a comparison. I put into Chronometer everything I ate on my old diet when I ate junk, and what I eat on keto now. I ate more fat before keto, even when I was high fat keto with my junk food diet. That's the thing that's going to kill you. So it's not so much that if you were like keto sometimes and like healthy diet, low carb, but not in ketosis sometimes, nothing bad will happen switching back and forth to that. Switching back and forth between keto and crappy diet, well, the crappy diet's the problem. So it's not, no. It's a nuanced discussion, but it's not the way that says. Noreen says, what is a good morning blood glucose reading? Do you check when you get up? I used to check my blood sugar when I got up. A good range is somewhere between 70 and 95, in my opinion. That being said, some people do have something called dawn phenomenon, which means that there's a period of time right after they wake up that their blood glucose goes maybe up to 105 or something. But if they check it again later, but before they eat, it's down in the 90s again. That may or may not really be a big problem. It's certainly, I don't think it's not a big problem. And it's something that usually resolves or gets better. There are some people that on a carnivore diet have higher fasting blood glucoses, just something to look at. Doesn't necessarily mean anything bad either. But generally speaking, somewhere between 70 and 95 as a morning blood glucose. Karen said, is that because you are more insulin stable now as opposed to earlier? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm much more insulin stable now and much more insulin sensitive now, I should say. Brooklyn, I'm having trouble with binging at night. Is there an easy fix? What did I do to overcome this? Eat a bigger dinner and then close the kitchen, like mentally. So I do not snack. I am not somebody who snacks. I don't snack. I say that to myself a lot. Do I occasionally have a snack? Yes, but my identity is of someone who does not snack, which means I have my planned dinner and my planned dessert in kind of my window. I don't go dinner and then 4 hours later have a dessert. I have dinner, then dessert. I don't have them like on the table at the same time, but like I have them in the same hour window. And then I don't eat again until I wake up and then start my next day. I just set myself a boundary. I know that sounds weird, but Brooklyn, the thing that I would say more than anything is start eating a lot at dinner. I'm not saying this is a permanent strategy, but if you're like, I can't not eat dessert, like do a couple of days of like rolling yourself away from the dinner table because you're so stuffed. You'll be a lot less likely to want a snack later, right? It won't be as hard to resist. And then give it 4 or 5 days. You probably aren't going to do that much damage with you overeating at dinner. And then you'll have a track record of not having a snack at night. And then you can eat less at dinner again and probably just taper down there. And now you're not somebody who snacks after dinner. So that's what I did. That's what I found to be most helpful. Jean says, "Oh, I'm so sorry you have COVID." I'm so sorry. I would say get lots of rest. Sort I don't honestly know. From people that have had it, I've heard kind of treat it like a cold in a lot of ways. Luba says, "Is it okay to take apple cider vinegar during a fast?" I certainly think so. Lucy mentions that Faye has a lactose-free one. Yes, it doesn't have any less carbs, but it does have it. When something is lactose-free, they've added an enzyme that makes the lactose not a problem for people. Tracy said, if we have dawn phenomenon, will it impact the A1C? A little, but not a lot. Debbie says, do I eat just one meal a day? Gosh, no, three. I eat 3 meals a day. 3 meals a day I eat. I used to eat two, but now I eat three. I like it better. I actually am not a huge fan of OMAD. If it works for you, fabulous. Again, anything that works for you, I am two thumbs up with. Uh, Statistically speaking, it's not, in my opinion. So why did I say statistically? In my opinion, is what I meant to say. It's not as good for fat loss, and it's not as good for stable blood sugars. And so I prefer 2 meals a day or possibly three, depending on where you are at in your journey. That being said, the different strokes for different folks. But there have been some studies that next day glucoses were higher in test groups of OMAD versus 2 or 3 meals a day. And I have found that to be true in some of my clients. That being said, you got to do what works for you. But absolutely, I know I'm not an OMAD person. I eat 3 times a day. My first couple of years of keto, I ate twice a day. Then I just found I liked to eat more often. Gwen and I found my cortisol. Like there's a more complicated answer to that, which is um that sometimes eating earlier in the day can help balance stress hormones a little bit better. Gwen says, I like wine. Can I have it on a low carb diet? Yes, but alcohol does impact fat burning. So I would not have it all the time. I would have it on special occasions or such. And I would look for a low sugar wine. Dry farm wines or Fit Vine make low sugar wines. Go for something dry, not something sugary. You want something they've fermented a lot of the sugars out of it, generally speaking. Karen says, now I'd really like to see what you eat in a day. Karen, I don't keep my carbs under 20 grams anymore. I used to, and I used to eat 2 meals a day under 20 grams of carbs. So I absolutely did that. Maybe I'll make a few infographics showing it. I can't go back in time, but I could probably mock some stuff up with old pictures. Joy said, and this is going to be the last question. How much total weight have you lost on your journey? Are you trying to lose more, or are you at your goal weight? I have lost 100 and, well, I lost 100 pounds and then I have put back on about 4 because right now I'm on a muscle building journey. Some of that is muscle, some of that is just water weight. A little of it is probably body fat, but I'm doing it intentionally. So I have lost 100 pounds and I would like to lose another 15 to 20 pounds of body fat. It's not been my goal over the past 3 months. I lost 5 pounds about 4 months ago. Then I went into maintenance and then a slight surplus because I really decided to hit it hard in the gym and that makes it a little easier to put on some muscle mass. So I'm now in that phase and then I'm looking at doing another cut, which is another fat loss period sometime in the next few months. And with the desire to lose probably 10 pounds at that time, and then probably do some maintenance after that, and then hopefully in my next cut after that, lose another 10 pounds and be around my maintenance there. So it's a lifelong journey, but I have lost about 100 pounds, and I legitimately would like to lose 15 to 20 pounds more. But 100 pounds ago, I would have said that the weight I'm at now is even lower than I ever hoped to get at. So it is a journey. And, if you watch a video from me in 6 months, I might say, well, I've lost 120 pounds, but I'd like to lose another 10. You know how it goes. Don't hold me to anything, people. But I think I've lost 100-ish, and I would like to lose 20-ish more. That that's where I'm at. But I'm in no hurry. I'm currently in a maintenance plus a little surplus phase for muscle building. That's how I do it. I periodize my fat loss approaches. So I do a period of fat loss, a period of maintenance, a period of fat loss, a period of maintenance. I go through these seasons because it works much better to keep me metabolically healthy, because when I just tried to diet, I hit a 2-year stall, and nobody was happy about that. No one. And so, in reversing that stall and fixing my metabolic issues, I learned to periodize my approaches. And I just like also having periods of time where I can eat more, because that is my favorite thing. All right, guys, we're going to call it a night right as my computer is about to die. So take care, everyone. I will see you next week. And Karen, I'll see what I can do about doing some mock ups of different sort of meals that I've done over time, so that it can help give people some ideas. Jill, how did I get out of a stall? Well, Jill, I've talked about it. You can probably find some information on my podcast. On my computer's about to die, but I'll say very quickly, I did a reverse diet. And you will probably say, what the heck is a reverse diet? And so I'm happy to talk about that next week, because we don't have a lot of time now, and it is a more complex topic. But if you go to my podcast, which is called Keto Life Support, you can look for the word reverse diet and you'll find some podcasts about it. All right. Bye, guys.